Hey there, and welcome to UI5ers Live. Yeah, we got another episode lined up for you today, packed with interesting topics. First up, we have Pieter Janssens from the UI5 community. Hi, Pieter. Yeah, he is here to share a solution he developed in collaboration with Pieter Music.
Hi.
Yeah, tackling the challenge of using the ui5-middlware-cfdestination tooling alongside the User Account and Authentication server on Cloud Foundry. Yeah, next up we have Daniel Nanovski from the Smart Controls team. Hi, Daniel. Yeah, he will be explaining how our smart controls can be used to get understandable descriptions for those more cryptical IDs we have sometimes. And then we have Matthias Oswald back up with us. Hi, Matthias.
Hi.
He will be unveiling a new feature on the UI5 tooling. And last but not least, our usual suspects, Stefan Beck.
Hey.
And Andreas Kunz.
Hello.
Yeah, and I'm Margot Wolny, your host for today's session. So let's get started and hand over the floor to Matthias.
Yeah, thanks for introducing. So I would like to share some feature we've worked on and released last month in UI5 tooling. So it comes with the version in the UI5 CLI 3.7.0 and is about source maps. So this feature here, which is called support input source maps, and that now helps you debugging applications, especially for TypeScript-based applications. And I would like to quickly demonstrate what you can do now. And for that, I already created a TypeScript-based app using the EasyUI5 generator for TypeScript application. So I have that project already on my system and already did a build. So now I start a server on this build output. And let's have a look in how I can debug the application. Oops. Server already running. Let's just use a different port then. Okay. So this is a very basic application, but with that, it's easy still to demonstrate how you can now debug in your TypeScript sources. So the application has a controller, and now you see here already that you have the TypeScript file in the sources, and we have a say hello function on the controller. So now here I can set a breakpoint, and if I click on say hello, debugger stops, and you can debug directly in the TypeScript source. And if you look down here below, you see where this comes from. So actually the code is running in the component preload.js. That's because I executed the build on the application and we are running with the optimized sources. So that works fine now, which previously did not. And the same also works if you now switch to debug mode and load debug files. There, the breakpoint is still here because I have the same file. And now if I click say hello, it still works. And you see here now it's mapped from the debug JavaScript file, so not loaded from the bundle. So if I click here, that's the actual JavaScript file being executed, which is also what you previously could only use to debug. So now you can really use your actual sources in TypeScript. And that's already it from my side. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Matthias. Right.
I talked already, but I have myself muted. So I would like to take over the sharing a little bit here, because I have also a small announcement to share with you. Maybe some of you who followed us on Twitter already have seen that we are having a small update on our version overview page. You know that in the past, the page grew over the years a little bit and the message have been a little bit unsorted. So we recently also categorized them a little bit more to have this more warning information on top and then the security related information categorized below. What we also did is really this second table that it only comes up with the maintenance versions by default. And if you press filter, you can also for sure see all the out of maintenance versions. And a nice thing which comes also with that is that the below table is now completely displaying all the available patches. And if you click on one of these rows, which in the meantime also displays the latest patch for this major minor version, you by default filter then here this below table for the concrete patch version. And yeah, for sure you can also do the filtering here on your own again. But I think this also makes this page a little bit more useful. And I would like to thank especially Tobias Hoffmann for that feedback on that, and also for all the others who came up with ideas on how to improve that page. So that's it from that perspective. And with that, I would then start to introduce and announce our guest, Pieter. He will help, or he will share something what we developed more or less together. So he came and reached out to me a while back with a challenge of making it possible to authenticate against the CF backend, because it's necessary in this scenario. And with that, we looked a little bit in one middleware, this UI5-middlware-cfdestination, which is used in the scenarios when you connect to Cloud Foundry services, how to make use of that. And with that, I just stop talking and hand over to you, Pieter, because I think you can explain it all in much more depth.
Okay, so indeed, so it is about UAA and trying to add UAA in the development workflow. To give some context and why we needed, or why our team needed UAA, is because we developed standalone full stack SuccessFactors extensions. And so there is a CAP backend where we sanitize, sort of speak, the OData. For example, SuccessFactors OData doesn't support post calls for create for the CRUD operations. And there is a bunch of other things which are very specific to SuccessFactors. So to make the binding of UI5 easier, and we have CAP as a way to have a standardized OData v2 and v4 model. We also implement some additional authorization checks on CAP level, so that's why we don't often call SuccessFactors directly. And we use CAP's external service functionality to do so. So this is supported by CAP and it's working great. Some requests we do target from the UI side through the app router directly to SuccessFactors. For example, when we try to load images, and so we found that performance-wise, it was better to do it directly than through CAP. During development, we find it a bit cumbersome to use mock data, and especially trying to test the application with different types of users. And then, of course, with every time the data coming from an external system, it makes it a bit more difficult. So we need to be able to test with real end users or test users during development. And SuccessFactors OData works with OAuth SAML bearer, so it's not OAuth client credentials which are set up in the destination. We need an actual client-side user authentication flow. And so this was not supported prior in the UI5 Surf stack. And so for that, I should have turned sooner to Pieter, but I switched to using the SAP app router standalone during development. And so this was good to then be able to develop, but of course we lose the UI5 tooling in that workflow. And so no live reload, no UI5 TypeScript transpile.
Exactly. That I think this point is really also with that growing demand of also that TypeScript is now becoming something essential in development of UI5 application. I think this is more important now that this works, and that's also one of the reasons why we did it for the CDS story, for the CAP services, and now also here in this case we could leverage the same functionality on this perspective for the UI5 tooling.
Exactly. So TypeScript was really the key reason that I reached out and said, okay, we have a real issue because we can't use it easily using the live transpile. So this is the schematic of how it looks like. And so we have, when we're developing, we're starting two services. So we start the app router manually, and then we also load the backend using CDS Wedge with a profile local. And let me just show you this scenario. So the profile local, because in there we set up to explicitly use excess UAA, and we're not going to use mock authentication with CAP. So when we run the backend, and we go to the backend, you can see that these endpoints are protected, so we can't just query them. We need an app router to take care of the authentication and then forward the JOT token to the backend. So to have that, we then run our app router, and the app router is basically just, it's like a traffic controller, so it's routing your requests to certain services, destinations, or local folders. And in our case, it is set up. This is the routing configuration. We have this special endpoint that we then point to our backend service and a web app. So not to the distribution folder, but just to the files. And that then allowed us to use it in this way. So you saw that it was redirecting to the BTP trial account. So this is when it was actually going through that UAA flow. And now we are authenticated and we can access our application and the backend. So, and if I would here change the URL and do this, so this time through the app router, we are allowed to query our CAP backend. So this is the first example. I'll just shut this down and then we go back. So then, due to TypeScript mainly, I reached out and said, look, we really have an issue, and I would really love to have support for UAA in that development flow using UI5 tooling. And I raised the issue, and then what Pieter afterwards said really helped him was getting a sample. So I gave him a sample with an MTA file that could easily deploy on his trial account, and that way he was able to also collaboratively figure out what the issue was with the CF middleware destination. So the middleware CF destination was already using the SAP app router, so the key component was already there, but it was not completely compatible with UAA flow and the underlying proxying of the Express middleware. So Pieter worked a lot on that, and I'm very grateful that he did. And we managed to have a version.
Yeah, this was really like a riddle, and I wanted to get that solved because I saw it technically it should work. And at the end, it was just a little bit of the mappings of this request, so this forwarding path to the app router, which then do the rest and forwarding to the real UAA at the end for the authentication flow. And this was, let's say, I found at the end how it works, and thanks to you with that example, because this is really also one thing where I would also emphasize, if you have problems like this and you have a great example where we can easily reproduce it, I think then also we can work together in a collaborative mode to find a proper solution for that. And that was really, really great.
Yeah, and that really jumpstarted the whole process. And then, as you can see in this diagram, we only have one part where we launch the application now. So there's various options to launch your backend or UI5 separately from UI5 from CDS. This is just my current preference because then I automatically I have my dev launch configuration. So it starts with CDS, and then the development mode, debug mode, I'm sorry, is directly hooked into CDS. And then from there, it launches UI5 automatically and then starts the whole UI5 serve stack. One thing to point out is if you use it this way, then make sure that you whitelist your redirect URI to accept multiple application paths. So that's it's something from the CDS plugin UI5. It will load any application on its own path, and then you need to have this endpoint whitelisted. So let me show you this part. So for that, first, I'll show you just the intermediary step. So we can also just run npm run serve on the app side. And then, yeah, I would do it. So this is just the serve working. And then we have the watch for CDS. So since it's UI5 Surf, it's now on 8080 by default. And again, we have a connection with the backend. So this is also through UAA. And then if I just kill them again here, we would here install. Yeah, I can leave that away because I'm already in there. So I'm adding CDS plugin UI5 as a development dependency to CAP. And this by itself, when you launch CDS Watch, it will detect that you have some UI elements, UI modules, and it will load them in automatically in the bootstrap. And from the bootstrap, UI5 Surf will be included in that process. So the only thing I have to do now is npm run watch again. And then you can see in the background, this is from UI5 Surf. It is also actually from UI5 middleware-cfdestination. It is now also including the app router. And then CDS is still running its process on 4004. So if I go there, and this Pieter is, I think, a small bug still in CDS, right?
Yeah, that's, you need to clean the cache.
So I'm just going to force reload this part. And then we can see that it automatically provides a way to access the
And
UI.
here you
so
see also with the UI5 flag on the right, you see that the UI5 CDS plugin UI5 or the CDS plugin UI5 is running here. That's the indicator that this is controlled by the UI5 tooling.
And then from there, it works just as well. And so you have various options now to work with it, but it's just my preference to do it this way because I'm usually debugging my front end in the browser anyway, and my CDS part in Visual Studio Code. So that's why I do it.
Bringing that now together with that what Matthias showed, having now the source map support for TypeScript, it's now easily possible to debug your TypeScript also in the browser here on the client side. And what we didn't see here on Pieter's presentation so far is the SAML authentication flow. So if you are not authenticated, this will trigger this typical flow, you know, where you have to provide your OTP token, and then you get logged in against the system, and then the data is probably being displayed and it's redirected afterwards back to your local application.
Yeah, and even the built-in routes for login and logout from the app router are also supported. So you can even call do logout to just log off and then log in with a different user if you wish to do that.
And you can customize them. So if you want to call it, do whatever, log out or so, you can also call it like that. It will be recognized by the middleware, and then also this endpoint or this service entity is being mapped.
Indeed. So then that brings us to the final slide, Pieter, which is hello UI5 middleware app router. So we think that the original scope of the CF-destination is a bit outgrown by now, and it is more than just CF-destinations. Since the middleware CF-destination came to life, there is also a Kima runtime, and possibly this would also even work with an ABAP runtime. I'm not sure, let me know. And instead of basic out and just out client credentials, we now have, I think, all types of authentication that can be achieved through the app router. So also to avoid confusion to new developers out there, we thought it was a good time to rename the middleware, so it will be continued under the name UI5 middleware app router. And if all is well, Pieter, I think you just published.
You can just click, it's available, the version 3.4.0. We keep the version of the CF destination and continue that from there. The only thing is that the title is not correct yet, I missed that. But it's available now under this UI5 middleware app router name, and we continue now, as you said, from there on with that name.
And then just one final thing to finish off is that we also worked on a little overview, because there is a couple of options out there to combine UI and backend development now. In the UI5 community, UI5 ecosystem, there is in the README a comparison table showing the different options. This is just the beginning. So if you have suggestions on more differences can be either way, then let us know, and this can really help developers find the right tool for their use case.
This was also one feedback I got from, I think was Wouter last week, where he mentioned that this these several options we have now causes confusions about how to connect to the backend, but every of these option has a different kind of functionality and feature set. And this was also the reason why we said it makes sense to add a kind of a comparison table set. And honestly, also their productive usage, non-productive usage. Yeah, for sure, all this, the UI5 tooling is not meant to be productive at the end. But with using the app router, for sure, you come to a productive environment where you can then really also later on use that same application in that way with that configuration to deploy that. And we tried to collect a few ideas, what it's interesting for you to know on one or the other idea, like, for example, WebSocket support, which are supported on via the UI5 middleware app router, but not, for example, in the UI5 middleware cap and so on. And this we try to list. If you have more ideas, suggest that, extend the list, and then we can also together put more information together for all the people who need to do a selection here.
Indeed.
Any questions? No? Thank you, Pieter. Well done. That was really a pleasure to work with you on that. And I think this will now also really be helpful for many, many people to simplify their development environment or development experience. Yeah. Cool. Okay, with that, we can hand over to Daniel.
So, decrypting cryptic IDs or solving a simple problem, how to say, that extending a structure that begins itself in the backend and how to display them easily using our smart controls. Today, I'll show you what exactly this means. So we can imagine that here is a simple page, a simple product page where you have a product name and a category for this product. And this category, as you see, is some kind of an ID that's not too much speaking to the end user. So we want the result on the right where we have some semantic name for this category ID. So the end user knows the name of the category and does not see only an ID. And I'll now show why this is the case. But firstly, where this is used in UI5, this is used in filtering, in tables, in dialogues, in forms. You can imagine almost everywhere on these pages you see something that we call text arrangement, where you see either the text and the ID on only the text. How this looks in the backend and why we need this. So this is a simple example of a product table on the left, how it would look in a backend. And what we have in this table is an ID, a category ID, and a name for our product. And what we have on the right is a joint table, which has an ID and name, holds the name of the category. What we have as a data in our example tables is, you see here, for the product, we have a category ID, which matches actually the first category from our categories table, and a name, of course. And we have to visualize this in the front end. This is a common pattern. I would not go into details why this pattern is used. Almost all of you have seen this pattern in the backend. So how we do visualize this in the front end, we need some additional prerequisites, at least for the smart field to work. And I will be talking about the SAP UI5 Smart Field control, because we support this also in other smart controls, but this is the one that I can show you a broader example. What we do need for this to work, we need in our all data service, in the service metadata, to have a property, of course, this property category ID that we would bind our smart field to. We also need our smart field definition in our view XML file. And here I have it bound directly to the category ID. And I have a property that I will talk later about it. What is also needed is we need in our service metadata value list definition. This describes the table, the categories table that we saw earlier, and also we have a common text annotation for the ID of this category table, which maps to the name. It basically tells us, okay, for this ID of category, this is the descriptive text, and we need this, so we are able to work correctly. And mostly the most important part of this is the value list annotation. So the value list annotation holds the mapping between the product table and the category table. It explains this to the smart field, and this is part of the OData protocol, of the OData service metadata. And here, the most important part is here. For example, you can see the mapping between the local data property category ID and the value list property. The value list property is the categories table, and the local data property is the products table on the left. So we know that category ID maps to this ID property, and we have also as a display only field the name, the descriptive text. So having this configuration, what's achievable with an additional configuration for text arrangement, we can show the smart fields in 4 different examples, this text and ID combination, which the most used is the this one at the top, where we have the text on the left and ID in the right of brackets, and for text last we have the ID, which is the leading. For some examples this might make sense, and the description in brackets on the right. This is also a very useful example. This is the text-only case where we don't show the user at all the ID, because this ID might not be a simple ID like you see a number in my examples, but it might also be a GUID, which is totally has no value to the end user, at least in my opinion. Maybe there are some exceptions to this case. And of course, we have a text separate configuration where we might disable this. This is all annotation based. All of these configurations are also accessible via directly interacting with the smart field control, or almost all of them, but the smart field control is primarily metadata driven, as we like to describe it. So what's the difference for the control when it is in display mode versus in edit mode? So on the left you see we have the smart field in edit mode, and I've shown here 2 flavors. One is the fixed list example, where you have a drop down and you could pick one of the value list entries for the category, and on the bottom is non-fixed list example, where the user have all the possibilities to enter whatever he wants. And in display mode, this always renders as a simple text regardless of what the user has chosen. We have also interesting here part, which is the validation part, and why we need this validation. Sometimes we need to limit the user so he's not able to enter any value that does not exist in the touched value list. So he cannot use an artificial category that does not exist in the backend, and this is configurable for the smart field. So in this example, the value list contains only records 1 or 2, and the user enters 3. So this is not a valid value. So the smart field would show an error. And on the next screen, I'll show you what happens. But we also have a warning. So maybe we don't want to fully stop the user from entering in value, but only to warn him, okay, this value does not exist. How this is working? For example, for the error state, and I have to warn you, this is totally asynchronous operation. So writing to the model is not like writing in a regular input where you tab out and the value is immediately available in the local model. Here we have some async operation before we can write the value to the model. So you have to always watch out for this when you use smart fields. So what's happening here? We have an user input when the user enters some value. Now this results in a backend request. We send a request to the backend and ask the backend, okay, does a value in this category table exists, such ID and text combination? And if the value exists, okay, well, this is a success. We store the value in the local model. But if the value does not exist in the backend returns no results, or backend returns more than one result, so it's not deterministic that the value exists in the value list. So we cannot store the value in this scenario. We show an error to the user, and we don't store anything. In the Wacom model, you have the previous value of the smart field. Of course, the success state is on the right. The interesting part is also the warning scenario, where when the user types a value in the input, we immediately store the value. And then we send the request concurrently to storing the value, because we want to store the value in the Wacom model, but we want to check if this value is still valid. So we send the request to the backend. Again, for invalid value, we show a warning, or if the value is valid, we just clear any warnings. And when this is useful mostly in draft scenarios. For example, if you edit a draft object, a draft product, maybe you also have on the same screen a table when you can add also a record to a category table. You can create a new category on the same page, and when you create the draft, we want to warn the user, okay, so no such category exists, but the user might be able also to create this category on the same screen even, or navigate somewhere else in the application where he can create the category, go back to his draft without losing this data, and just create the record then. One interesting scenario, the text only, which is used not only where we have EDM string types, so data types in the backend, but also for GUIDs. And we show the user only the text. But what happens, this is interesting, what happens when the user enters the text, for example, in this example, the user enters personal headset and tabs out of the field. What we do then? This is the user input. Then we send a request to the backend, and we ask the backend, okay, do you have in your categories table a record that has this description exactly? And if the backend returns record is found, actually, this is what the backend returns, a single record. So we know this is a valid input for this field. And behind the scenes, we take the key from the record that's returned to the backend, and we store this key in the Wacom model. And this GUID in this example. So let's talk a little bit about performance, which is also important part when you use smart fields and text arrangement. I will tell that's why it's very important to always use the common text annotation here. And how we use this, this is the regular case where in the main entity type adjacent to the category ID, we also expose the category name. So if you can imagine a page, a product page is loaded with 10 fields with values, and in order to us to not make requests for every field to the backend to retrieve the description and to show this description to the user, we can expose, this description can be exposed in the main entity type for the initial loading only of the smart field, and described with a common text annotation that for the category ID, the category name is the common text. So what's loaded in the front-end model, we have all the category ID and the common text, so we can show the ID and description without the need to make a backend request for the initial load, regardless if this is in display mode or edit mode. So we don't make 10 requests, we only have one request to the backend, which loads the initial data for the fields, and we are able to render these fields. There is also another option, which is not the most popular one. It's not widely used. I'll just show it for completeness. This is a navigation property when the text is not part of the main entity type, but in the backend exposes this relation between the two tables with a navigation. And this navigation, this is what it's loaded in the front end model, having such a navigation. And you see, we have the product name, and we have this important part, which is the navigation itself and the descriptive text. So we know the name, we know the description, we know the ID, the category, we know the description, and we have this mapping explained here, so we can again render the smart field without making any additional backend request. So this is The next thing you can do to further enhance this is in-out parameters and constants. And I have made a simple example here what this might help with. This is our main entity type here, and instead of having only the regular fields, I had added here the type ID. Because in some scenarios we have in our value list more than composite ID, to say more than we need more than one thing to identify a single record, because as I explained earlier, we sometimes show an error if the backend returns more than one result. So we don't want this, and sometimes our value lists are not that simple, so we need additional information for filtering. So here we've added a type ID to our main entity type, and also to our value list entity type we have here a type ID and a country as additional properties, and they are also part of the key. So we need to express this in a value list annotation, and the first thing that is expressed here is the value list parameter in for this value list annotation. This is also a mapping between the local entity type type ID here and the value list property type ID. So we know we have to take the value currently in the model in the local entity type and create a filter for the value list for this value. And it's much easier for the value list constant, where we just have a constant for a country, again expressed in this mapping. So we take Bulgaria for our filtering, and we can be more deterministic by filtering these value lists. So this was it. You can find some samples of this and how to use it in our demo kit on the address shown below. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
What a ride through the special things you need to know around the smart stuff, the smart controls. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. So there was already always coming nice feedback from Marian, who said, yeah, well, I looked exactly in the similar thing today, and this is a very nice feature, so you can read through that. Are there any questions from someone in the audience towards Daniel? If not, then this surprises me, because it seems that we are really in time.
Yeah, and with this, it seems that we can kind of close our today's call. The next session will be, or the next episode will be in December 14th. So I hope all of you will be there or joining us again. There we have a kind of special, we plan some special celebration sessions. So this will be something new to us and hopefully also to you, and hope you are curious about this. Not sure if we want to unveil what we celebrate, but I think we actually did this already on our event page. So what we want to celebrate in December is 10 years of open sourcing UI5. So 10 years of open UI5.
Which was open sourced on 11th December 2013, and we celebrated on the 14th. At 15, 16, maybe we start.
Let's see. Yeah, but I think it's a big thing, and if you have some story to tell what Open UI5 means to you, or what you experience in these 10 years, we are more than happy to hear about that. Just get in contact with us. But with this, I guess if there's also no comments from you right now, I think we can close today in time. So thanks again. Thanks especially for our guests today. Great presentation, Pieter. I hope this was not the last time you joined us and shared your experience. It was really nice. And
it was a pleasure. Let's see.
Cool. Yeah. Also, thanks, Daniel. Hope to hear more from Smart Controls. I think that's something people outside are really looking for information. So that's great. And also, we cannot see Matthias anymore. There he is.
Oh,
sorry, I'm still there. Yeah.
No, sorry. But yeah, also then looking forward to hear also from the community how they experience the new features and what they are missing. So just let us know about your experience. And with this, I think we can really finally close today. So have a good day and see you in December. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.